In my mind, Gears of War has a multitude of different, elements to it that make it such a special title and one of my favorite games of all time. Number one, of course, guys, the story is incredible, right? And that's what makes any great franchise move forward is really the story. On top of that being the multiplayer experience, which is incredible, right? Has greenlit, the Gears esports scene. Obviously, that's going to be shutting down here shortly, but we're thinking it's going to come back with the next Gears of War entries and things of that nature. But even at that, I mean, all the things from Horde mode to Hive Busters to, I mean, all Beast mode, all these different modes that Gears of War has created make the title super special. Well, it's interesting, guys, because an article came out talking about how Gears of War's multiplayer, which I believe is one of the greatest multiplayer modes of all time, guys. I absolutely love multiplayer with Gears of War. It was almost cut from the game. Let's talk about it. So, guys, in an article coming to us from Anne Marie Ostler of Games Radar, Gears of War's multiplayer element was very nearly removed from the game. Gears of War's multiplayer element was very nearly removed from the game. The first Gears of War is one of Xbox 360's most memorable shooters, not least because of its brilliant multiplayer offering, but things could have been very different. Speaking on War Stories Season 1 Episode 32, Lee Perry, gameplay designer and lead level designer on Gears of War, reveals how the team almost axed the game's multiplayer modes shortly before launch. While multiplayer was something that the team was always keen on implementing, the studio's small size made it difficult. In terms of the manpower we had associated with the effort, we didn't have a team of people just making multiplayer maps, recalls Perry. Hefty competition from the likes of Halo also made the team feel as if they were dramatically losing that battle. But the biggest obstacle the developer faced was how to implement Gears of War's slower pace into a multiplayer game and still make it enjoyable to play. Initially, the team made maps similar to those in Counter-Strike and Unreal Tournament, but as these games are all about mobility, the maps didn't make for a fun time in Gears of War. It was always a train wreck, explains Perry. We were at the start of summer and this thing is shipping in fall, and there was a very specific moment where we were having those discussions of, do we just cut this, he says. I mean, can you imagine, guys, Gears of War not having multiplayer mode? I mean, it's just like mind-blowing to me to even think that that was a consideration. I mean, we're looking in hindsight because the first Gears of War, they just didn't know, right? I could have totally understood if they wanted to make a title that being, Gears of War, just having a story mode, maybe Horde mode, and not even including a multiplayer because, they're taking a pretty big risk on, resources and things of that nature for multiplayer. But I've always said, guys, the games that are my favorite to play are the ones that have full packages, that being a full-blown campaign mode, multiplayer modes, and co-op modes. If you have all three of those things, that, in my mind, is what makes up a true AAA title. And Gears of War, guys, was the first one that I really played ever that had all three of those things. The Xbox 360 that I purchased, Gears of War came with it, and with it came this package that was unbelievable. Now, sure, multiplayer was not perfect then, but to what we've gotten to this point, we have a Gears of War, the multiplayer elements of it, in my mind, it is the greatest third-person shooter of all time. From a multiplayer perspective, I think from a story perspective, it's incredible, right? Now, sure, people will argue that games like Fortnite are a better shooter, competitively and things of that nature. I just think that there's nothing like Gears of War, and I think that Gears is the third-person shooter of our time. Rather than shipping the game without multiplayer, the team worked hard on designing maps built around Gears of War's signature playstyle. Perry explains that the team now forced the enemies to come out at one location to avoid the frustration that comes with opponents suddenly killing you out of nowhere. As well as these choke points, low walls and obstacles were added to allow players to see across the battlefield but still be protected by cover. Much like in the single-player campaign, the whole point was that you had the opportunity to see what those people were doing, Perry explains. And I got to tell you guys, it's a really interesting story hearing these things that have come out, that Gears of War's multiplayer, the way, it's like you feel a certain way when you realize behind the scenes before the game that a game that you absolutely love and have admired for so many years. It really puts things into perspective when you start hearing that they were going to axe the multiplayer from the very beginning. And that could have changed Gears of War's history forever. We may have never gotten a trilogy. We may have never gotten up to this point, all the way to Gears 5. It may have stopped after, the trilogy, Gears 1, 2, and 3. It's a very much so a high possibility. And if they would have made Gears of War 1 without multiplayer, would they have made the second and the third one without multiplayer? It's just a really interesting thing, guys. This greenlit so much, and that's why I'm totally fine with the Coalition taking their time with the next Gears of War project, because I wanted to have that feel for everybody in the community that we all feel that Gears of War is 100% back and it's going to be better than ever. We're going to take over the third-person shooter space, be the esport of our time when it comes to a third-person shooter perspective, be a title that we continue to admire, but like are really excited about moving forward. Because the truth is, guys, is that there's been peaks and valleys with Gears of War, just like any major franchise out there. Gears of War is no different. I mean, it's had rough launches. Every Gears of War title has a rough launch, it seems, and so I just want them to hone out those issues that they've had, make this the best possible title you can, that being Gears 6, and let's move forward into the future. But what do you guys think about Gears of War's multiplayer? Was almost taken out completely of the original game. I mean, what do you guys think about that? That really puts into perspective how much an appreciative I am of not only Gears of War as a franchise, but that those developers, that being Epic Games, didn't take multiplayer out, because we may never have gotten where we are right now in the Gears of War franchise. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And for more Gears of War content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.